Verstappen's victory in the Miami Grand Prix was an extraordinary feat, as it has occurred in less than 0.5% of all Formula One races in history. In fact, the Dutch driver had a higher likelihood of winning from 14th on the grid than from 9th, as the last driver to win from a 9th place start was Niki Lauda 39 years ago. Max Verstappen delivered an exceptional performance in two key parts of racing, leaving Sergio Perez with no choice but to watch and learn as he claimed victory in the South Floridian city. Why are Red Bulls so stupidly good, and what's the crucial aspect of the race in which Verstappen completely outclassed Perez? Stick around as we reveal Red Bull's secret, which net them a very easy 1-2 victory in the Miami Grand Prix. Red Bull, and particularly Verstappen, excel at overcoming mathematical improbabilities, as the Dutch driver has consistently turned less favorable grid positions into impressive results this season. In Saudi Arabia, he battled back from a 15th place start brought on by a drive shaft issue in qualifying, and secured second place with a determined charge to the front. Achieving victory from the 9th spot wouldn't be an impossible task given the substantial advantage offered by the RB19 package. His aim was to bounce back after a disastrous qualifying session, during which he slid off at turn 5 and had to abandon his fast lap. However, by the time he was ready to rejoin the track, the session had been red flagged, forcing him to start from P9. The unique set of conditions surrounding the Miami circuit made it particularly intriguing, as the track had been somewhat unpredictable leading up to the race due to recent resurfacing. After constructing the circuit around the Hard Rock Stadium the previous year, jet blasting was used to remove excess oils from the asphalt surface. However, this cleaning method proved to be too aggressive, causing the track to deteriorate over the weekend. This year, organizers chose a different approach, prioritizing track preservation at the expense of grip during the initial sessions. Although offline areas of the track remained somewhat treacherous, most issues related to low grip conditions were resolved. Consequently, Verstappen couldn't rely on cars ahead of him making errors and needed to make up ground on his own to have a chance at progressing in the race. After discussing with his engineers post-qualifying, he opted to explore an alternative tyre strategy, deviating from the expected medium-hard progression in what was primarily anticipated to be a one-stop race. However, the tyre selection is not the only thing that massively helped Verstappen achieve victory. More on this later in the video. We were quite strongly opinionated on that already, Verstappen explained with regards to starting on the hard tyre. Then of course you have to discuss it with the team, with the strategists. They said in terms of race time it was very close between doing a medium hard or hard medium. It didn't really matter. When you start on the hard, the risk is a bit higher because we only had one set. So if you have a puncture or whatever, then of course your race is a bit tougher. But I was happy to take that gamble, opting for the medium-hard strategy due to increased risks related to his pole position. Perez, along with the other top 7 starters, made a calculated decision. Verstappen, conversely, chose an alternative approach as he had less to lose compared to his teammate. Aiming to prevent a recurrence of the Saudi Arabia race start, where Perez was temporarily overtaken by Alonso, the Mexican driver sought a more solid beginning this time. Perez successfully defended his position against Alonso at the first corner, swiftly widening the gap between them. Instead of allowing Alonso to track his moves in the initial laps, Perez focused on creating a 1-second gap to establish a lead, not to counter Alonso, but to defend against Verstappen's surge. Verstappen, on the other hand, had a more cautious start and was passed by Bottas, another driver impacted by the Q3 Leclerc incident. Nevertheless, Verstappen bounced back, quickly overtaking Bottas and Ocon to join the fierce contest between Magnussen and Leclerc. With the two Ferrari-powered cars vying for position, Verstappen executed a daring maneuver on the 4th lap, passing both drivers in a 3-wide entry into the first corner, while Magnussen maintained his lead over Leclerc. It wouldn't be long until Verstappen found himself in a podium position at P3 before swiftly overtaking Fernando Alonso on lap 15 to get to P2 and position himself into the rearview mirror of Sergio Perez. The leading Red Bulls had a gap just under 4 seconds, with Perez struggling to maintain his front right tyre. He held on until lap 20 when Verstappen halved the gap, then switched to hard tyres. Despite upshift issues, Perez maintained his lead. An 18-second gap to Verstappen required Perez to balance speed and tire conservation for 37 laps. Progress was slow but steady, and by lap 24 he reduced the lead by a second. Verstappen aimed to preserve the gap with strong lap times. As tire wear became less critical, Verstappen pushed harder. At lap 32, the Red Bull's gap was at its smallest, with Perez 14.8 seconds behind as both managed their Pirelli tires and Verstappen conserved tires when the gap was narrowest, and he later extended the lead before his lap 45 pit stop. After Verstappen switched to medium tires, an 18.5-second gap separated him and Perez. Verstappen quickly closed in and was within DRS range by lap 46. Perez resisted, forcing Verstappen to take a longer route around turn 17's hairpin, but Verstappen regained the lead on lap 48, and Perez, with worn tires, had no hope of a comeback. He ultimately accepted his fate, and Verstappen secured his 38th Formula One win, finishing 5.4 seconds ahead of Perez. The amazing tire management from the two-time world champion, however, was not the only reason he was so fast in Miami and managed to blaze past everyone in front of him in less than 15 laps. Red Bull have a unique car design, in which there's harmony between the top wing, the beam wing, and the diffuser, which equates to masses of extra speed. Here's what I mean by this. First of all, we have to understand that Red Bull designs the DRS first, then the rest of the car. DRS has evolved significantly since its introduction in 2011, transitioning from a simple overtaking aid to a more complex and integral part of car design. Initially, the rear wing flap would open on straights, reducing drag and facilitating easier passes. Now, teams consider the impact of DRS on the entire rear of the car during the design phase. The underfloor, crucial under current regulations, generates over 50% of a car's total downforce, while wings contribute the rest, making the rear wing an essential component. With DRS, shedding more drag is beneficial, but it's not solely about eliminating drag from the rear wing when the DRS flap opens. Instead, it's more effective to reduce drag across the entire rear of the car, including the top wing, beam wing, and diffuser. Red Bull designed their car with DRS integration from the start, incorporating the top wing, beam wing, and rear diffuser to achieve superior top speed. These elements must work in harmony, with the reduction of drag from one leading to a decrease in drag for all, further enhancing top speed. The rear wing, beam wing, and underfloor must communicate effectively. When DRS is activated, the beam wing produces less downforce and alters its flow structure, impacting the underfloor and reducing both downforce and drag. Red Bull's DRS advantage stems from their better car design and a more cohesive rear end than their competitors. The RB19 is fast in a straight line and has more downforce, allowing for better cornering and less drag. Comparatively, Mercedes's rear is less stable, requiring more rear wing downforce for cornering, which negatively affects top speed, while Red Bull generates more downforce from its underfloor, needing less from the rear wing, which is less aerodynamically efficient, resulting in a more efficient overall package. The crucial factor is that the entire rear of the car works together effectively, because Red Bull excels in making the rear components function as a single unit. And while we think that their DRS appears more effective, which was said by Fred Vasseur previously, it's actually the entire car that's more efficient. The important thing here, I think, is that the challenge for other teams in catching up to Red Bull lies not in copying the RB19's rear-end design or being constrained by the cost cap. The real obstacle is their limited understanding of how the upper wing, beam wing, and underfloor interact with each other. These teams may be treating the three components as separate elements, struggling to make them work in harmony, much like their difficulty in replicating the downforce generated by Red Bull's underfloor. This lack of comprehensive understanding is evident in the standings and the half-second per lap deficit of the next best car over a race distance. As we can see, Red Bull is actually much further ahead of everyone else, not just in race pace, but most importantly in understanding formula physics and how the car works with its parts installed. This is something that the teams that race against them will have to understand with their own cars, if they want to try to even get near them in the future. What do you think? Will some team reach Red Bull sometime soon, or is their #1 position safe for the foreseeable future? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and we will see you next time.